It's the story of your
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway on this Thursday morning. I'm so glad you're with us on the Christmas Eve. I really love Christmas Eve. Right now, my friends over at Angel Tree are running around like Santa's elves. They got one more day to get this done, and they're getting urgent requests from prisoners to please. And sometimes these men and women are not the most organized people in the world, and they decide, I want to get a Angel Tree. And you know what? Angel Tree will deliver for them if they've got the money and if they've got the volunteers. They've got the volunteers. All they need is your money. It's not too late. Give a listen here to a Tulsa Angel Tree, Oklahoma volunteer.
It's really devastating for a child to not have their parents around during Christmas time, or to know that somebody loved them, because that's really the key. They need to know that somebody loved them.
Just having that connection with their parent and sending that message from the incarcerated parent, and to get that on Christmas morning, love dad or love mom, is one of the greatest gifts you could ever give a child.
If you head over to HughHewitt.com and you go to the very top, I haven't done that yet this morning to see who's been giving overnight, but you can make a donation. $25 is one gift delivered from a parent with a note, with a Bible, a child's Bible, to one of the children served by Angel Tree. There are 1.5 million children on their list. They're making their way through it, and I want to thank especially Jonathan in Maryland, who sent us $36. That's one of those, 25, 50... 100, but 36, we love it. Thank you, Jonathan PG. Jack, $125 in Washington State. That's a late night when someone was up late. Diana G in New York, $125. Richard B, $25 in California. Thank you. Yesterday I had a $501 donation from Glenn, and it turns out Glenn adds the one for his late son Holden, which I find to be just an amazing and touching way to remember someone in your giving of the present for their giving in the past. I just think it's great that so many of you are lining up to do this on Christmas Eve. Thank you. HughHewitt.com, go to the top. Okay, the president was on last night. I think maybe I wouldn't put the president on TV much more this week. He was on with David Muir. First thing he does is we got great news. We've got a new antiviral drug from Pfizer, I believe. Is it Pfizer? I want to make sure it's either, it's Pfizer's COVID-19 pill is authorized. Here is what the president says to David Muir last night, cut 15.
I want to get right to Omicron. As you know now, the dominant strain here in the U.S., Dr. Fauci now says it could account for up to 90% of all new cases by just next week. The CDC now warning Americans that we could see peaks that we haven't seen so far in this pandemic. I know just before we sat down here, the FDA has now authorized the first COVID pill, the first antiviral pill from Pfizer. 89% effective at preventing hospitalizations and death. The obvious question for you, Mr. President, is how much has the government purchased? How much is ready to go right away?
We've purchased several million already, but here's right away, I think don't hold me to the number. I think it may be 20 million, but a lot of pills, all they can make so far. But I hope we don't get there, because if people get the shots, they get their 2 shots and the booster, they're not going to be in a position where they're going to need such a pill.
Do you have any idea how quickly the American people will actually see these pills? How soon we're going to be able to get them to hospitals that are already seeing patients?
The answer is, I think it'll be a matter of weeks to a month to get the pills, but it won't be enough to get to all the hospitals. We ordered a lot more of those pills. We have to order millions of those pills. All right,
stop for a second. Stop. We're also trying to find tests right now, right? At-home tests. Listen to this. Cut number 16, Joe Biden and David Muir.
And is your hope that for the millions of Americans who are trying to get tests before the holiday, that they'll be able to do
Well, they won't be able to do it. The number of tests available, I've ordered 500 million of them for the United States to be sent to everybody who wants the test can have one sent to home.
And that's January.
That's
right?
in January.
And so will they have those rapid tests by when? By mid-January? By the end of January?
The answer is, the expectation is it'll be by the rapid tests will start going out in the beginning of January, because they're being produced now.
Yeah, and good luck with that. I was on Special Report last night, and Brett Baer played the clip of the president saying not to worry, the supply crisis is all over. And he came to me on the panel. I was on the panel with Morgan Ortagus and Juan Williams, both good friends of mine, old friends. Juan and I have been out on the lunch circuit for a long time. He actually is right about charter schools, and that's about it. But I love Juan. So I'm on the panel with Juan and Morgan, who was also another old friend. And Brett comes to me first with this supply chain. Nothing to see here, move along. In fact, Brett told a funny joke about the droids. And I replied this way, cut number 12.
Good news. We've saved Christmas. And that is because President Biden recognized this challenge early.
We've saved Christmas. Hugh, it wasn't a problem to begin with. We shouldn't have worried. What do you think about that?
You can't make this up. And I mean, any American who's trying to get an at-home COVID test right now can't get one. In fact, you can't get a booster appointment in a lot of places where suddenly serious people, and the president made a good appeal last night, cited President Trump getting a booster as well. So people want to get a booster, and they can't get a booster. And when you go to stores, lots of stuff is missing. And that's because if you run along the Huntington Beach, and that's where I like to go when I'm in California, along the Newport Beach, Huntington Beach Boardwalk, the cargo ships are lined up as far as the eye can see because they might be going 24/7, but you can't fix what was broken in a year overnight, and it's still broken. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I was also the bearer of good news, though. Yesterday, the news came down right before the panel came on that the Supreme Court had accepted, and we'll hear expedited argument on, and we'll hand down decisions on the president's 2 vaccine mandates, one from OSHA and one to Medicare and Medicaid. And Brett came to me on that. I think he knows I teach constitutional law. I was teed up, ready to go. Cut number 11.
And syndicated radio host Hugh Hewitt. Hugh, this is really where this is all coming to. The Supreme Court was going to have to weigh in because you had a number of courts weighing in with different rulings.
Yes, Brett, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think you've got at least 6 justices led by Justice Kavanaugh who are very suspicious of administrative agency overreach, and that this will be struck down, the mandate of private employers, at least for certain, struck down. And I think it'll be fairly quick, and I don't think it's going to be any great dispute among the court. You might even get Justice Kagan to say it's under something that's very obscure, the Chevron doctrine. This is just beyond what OSHA was intended to do. If Congress wants to give the president this power, they have to pass a law to do it. And but I should have added Justice Breyer. It could be 8-1. You don't get Sotomayor for anything. Justice Sotomayor believes in big government, believes that the Constitution is a suggestion. But I was happy to say I hope that's going to be the case. I got to go back to the president, though, because he also got asked by David Muir about Build Back Better. Cut number 17.
You've met with Senator Joe Manchin a number of times. You invited him to your home in Delaware. He came to the White House a week ago. Then he's on Sunday morning cable and says, I'm a no. How does that happen? How are you not able to close the deal?
Well, look, let's talk about what we have done. We have passed more major legislation than anybody in their first year ever. Now, I haven't given up on this. I haven't given up on it.
But Senator Manchin's main sticking point, it would appear, is the child tax credit. Are you willing to take that out if it means bringing him on board?
Well, look, I want to get as much as I can possibly get done. As much as we can possibly get done. I still think we'll be able to get a significant amount of what we need to get done. Particularly as the American people figure out what is in this legislation.
Not true. Not true. I also got this question from Brett Baer on Special Report last night. Cut number, he's asking me about how are they doing in the Biden administration. Cut number 13.
Hugh, final thing. Is this administration heading into the new year hurting politically? Where do you sense that the politics is as you head to 2022 with the Biden administration?
I try and be objective about this, Brett. They're on their heels. They're going backwards. Israel, Germany, and England are going into a 4th booster shot. We're disorganized. Regeneron is not out there. Only one of the 3 monoclonal antibodies work, and it's not available widely. Omicron is omnivorous, and it's going to be omnipresent pretty soon, and it's going to take the people who are not vaccinated. And so it's going to be a dark winter, and it's because the year that has been given to Team Biden, that Operation Warp Speed gifted them vaccines and a supply chain, has been squandered on politicking over big tax hikes instead of taking on COVID. So they're on their heels. And they're on their heels, and it's not, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer. I went on later and gave this The Grinch stole Europe's Christmas because they're running out of power. That's the headline of tomorrow. I don't know if I have that clip. If I had a producer, I had that clip. Yeah, I don't have that clip. If only I had a producer. But I will tell you right now, they're on their heels. And there's not much you can do for them except pray. But you can go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to Angel Tree. Wait for the banner at the top to load. Be as generous as you can, and thank you. I'll be right back. Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway, talking in Israel with Dr. Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the United States and former deputy minister of the Israeli government. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning, and happy holidays to you and all your listeners.
Thank you. I want to outsource America's Omicron policy to Israel. Yesterday, I read in the Times of Israel a fourth dose, a second booster, will be widely available to people our age shortly. And I just think that makes common sense if you haven't had one in 6 months. But it'll take us months to get around. Who makes these decisions in Israel? Why is it so efficient over there and such a mess here?
Because I guess you have to, the explanation you'll find in the Federalist Papers. You're going to have to ask Mr. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay. The founding fathers of the United States were very, very concerned about centralized power. They're afraid, their nightmare was the King of England, tyranny. So they diffused power between, federal, state, county, municipal power. And so the President of the United States can't order vaccinations or even the closure of schools in a city, in a state, in a county. I remember the case during COVID where the governor of New York said to the mayor of New York, close your schools in the city, and the mayor of New York said no. But here you have a government, the central government, and the government makes a decision. It can close all the schools in Israel, and it can order vaccinations for the entire country, simply with a decision by fiat.
No, I do like our system better.
United States of America.
I like our system better, but what I envy is a medical establishment that has credibility, so that when they say, we think you ought to get a second booster, a fourth dose, people in Israel don't say, oh, I don't trust it. It's full of little enzymes that will track you for life that have been placed there by secret conspiracies. They say, okay, where do I get it? Well, I mean, how do you develop that kind of credibility? That's not a government question.
But it's not just that. The vaccination policy has to be grounded in sort of an omnibus legislation. I'll give you an example. It's saying that if you don't have a vaccination, you can't work in a healthcare facility. If you don't have a vaccination, you can't get into a movie theater.
Okay, but we're not going to agree on that. But I'm going to agree that your doctors are respected and your public health authorities are above politics. That hasn't happened here.
That has not happened. There've been times when it's been challenged. There's no counterpart to Dr. Fauci.
No. There's a bunch of people who get together and persuade. That's why I read the Times of Israel. Let me quickly ask you, Michael, about
the COVID think tank.
That's it. Let's talk about the incident on the Tombstone Express, which I read with great interest yesterday. What was that? Where is that? What are you up to now?
So what I'm up to now, this is part of my next collection of short stories. I have a novel coming up next year, which I know you're going to enjoy. Trust me, I know you're going to enjoy it because it's a murder mystery set on a massive.
I love To Those Who Call in Truth, Michael. So it's going to be a tough lift to beat To Those Who Call in Truth.
It's about an Irish police woman from Boston who has to solve a serial killer crime on a sort of a Nantucket-like island during World War II. So don't ask me where these things come from. The short stories I have on my Substack now, please, all your listeners invited. It's called Memory Man. That's the name of it on Substack. And I post selections from my new short story collection, which I am, assiduously at work on now. And there'll be a story every couple of weeks.
Well, I thought that was it was a MacGuffin, and you put something in there that was intended to think. It's not a MacGuffin; it's a misdirection, but it's great, yes. And I enjoyed it terrifically. When do you write? Are you a morning or an evening writer?
No, I'm a morning writer. I can only write in the morning. I can only roll out of bed, get a cup of coffee, and go write.
All right. Last question, Michael. There have been a couple of incidents, very scary incidents. Are these isolated, or are they predictors of trouble ahead?
You mean terror accident?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it always goes in waves. It just does. They come and go. It's sometimes they're lone wolves, sometimes they're copycats. Hamas will praise them, doesn't always direct them, and we weather them, and we just do. There was a spate of, I remember 5-6 years ago, there was a spate of stabbings. Remember?
Yes, my wife was there during that. Yep, my wife was there during that, and she couldn't do any of the fun stuff. They just built a kindergarten playground because they had to get on and off the bus. And one of their number watched a stabbing in a drugstore. It was nuts.
So we deal with it. It is extremely tragic and unpleasant, but I don't feel any difference in the atmosphere here at all.
And so on New Year's Eve in Israel, will there be celebrations at the beach?
Yeah, there will be, with mask, without mask. I think I'd have a hard time, keeping it down. I live in Jaffa, and Jaffa goes wild on New Year's Eve. We have a large Christian population here, and a huge, wonderful Christmas tree and decorations in my city. It's amazing. And people really celebrate. Huge celebration. Then can I just add one thing?
Please.
You won't remember this, but about 10 years ago, 60 Minutes did a hatchet job on the state of Israel. And I appeared in that segment. The libel was that Israeli policy was driving Christians out of the Holy Land. And it was a total lie.
That's crazy.
Statistics came out, total lie. The statistics came out yesterday that 84% of Israeli Christians are very satisfied living in the state of Israel, and that the number of Christians in this country is going up and not down.
Oh, I can vouch for that personally. I know that to be true, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Merry Christmas to all my Israeli Christian friends and to all my Jewish and Muslim friends in the state of Israel. May you have a free and prosperous 2022. Stay tuned, America. I'll be right back. Hour number 2. Thank you, Michael Oren. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Among the favorite guests of this audience is Senator Jim Talent, former senator from Missouri, member of the Bipartisan Policy Center. He's right down the middle of the center-right movement. He is always calm and patient. A Merry Christmas to you, Jim Talent. I hope you get a chance to be with families and friends and that Omicron has not blown your Christmas apart.
It is not, actually. We have our kids coming in. Here in Missouri, things are still pretty open. And Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jim, I want to talk very seriously quickly about Ukraine. It is clear to me Putin will invade. If not this week, then early in January. It's clear to me that the energy crisis gripping Europe will make them collapse. Do you believe in little green F-35s? Because if they use little green men in Syria, maybe we can use little green F-35s in Ukraine.
Well, I think we should be planning to help the Ukrainians in any way we can, should he invade. I mean, the $64 question, is whether he's actually planning to invade or whether he's preparing, as if he was going to invade, in order to get us to give him concessions for not doing what he, in fact, was not planning to do in the first place, or if he himself knows. In other words, he could be preparing and not have made the decision yet. And I don't know. I've been calling my friends who are experts on Russia. I study China on an ongoing basis. But when these incidents occur in Eastern Europe, I have to go back and talk to the people who do know. And nobody's sure. What we do know, is that the initiative is passed into the hands of the aggressors. We're waiting to see what he does. And that's because we're outgunned, outmanned, and outranged in Eastern Europe. Let's just face it.
I just wish that we would, because plausible deniability need no longer be plausible. It just needs to be deniable.
Yes.
I wish we were as aggressive as he was in Syria. Let me switch to China, where they have locked down between 13 and 15 million people. What's that tell you, Jim Talent?
Well, that tells me they don't and have never have had this virus under control, and they're continuing to try to stop it. I think they started it. It's my own opinion that the virus was engineered in one of their labs. I don't think they deliberately released it, but I think they allowed it to escape. That would be normal. As soon as I heard they had a lab in Wuhan, because I know their safety procedures are not good, I figured that was probably the explanation. So they're trying to stop it, and of course we won't get the truth out of what's really happening there.
I do know that they took down the Tiananmen Square from Hong Kong University Memorial. I also know that Xi will not give a second term to Carrie Lam in Hong Kong. And I also know, because of my bot traffic and some that are not bot, that my Washington Post article on Wang Huning has gotten the attention of the Central Committee. What do you make of Wang Huning?
Well, I don't know that much about him, to tell you the truth. I got to read the article.
Oh, don't read mine. Read the Palladium piece. He's a scary guy. He's the most dangerous guy I'd never heard of until last month. And the more I study, rigid ideologues looking for core values are a danger. He's just erasing people. He's going full Orwell.
Oh, yes, the security chief, yes. So listen, they have what they spend and how they train people to maintain a repression of their people. It's unbelievable. And the funny thing is, the more aggressive and confident they seem to be internationally, the more scared they seem to be domestically. They're very concerned, and when you think about it, they're having to repress the Uyghurs, they're having to repress the Tibetans, they're doing it in Mongolia, they're doing it in Hong Kong, they're having to threaten and coerce the Taiwanese. It's a huge burden on them. If we would do what we needed to do, I think we could restore a balance in their near seas pretty quickly, but we have to get some purpose and some planning.
Deng Xiaoping introduced flexibility. They are removing it, which leads to rigidity. And I remember the Kissinger book began with that which is unified must divide, and that which is divided must unify. Seems to me they're pretty unified right now so that the rigidity sets in. It might be a New Year's hope that the cracks begin to appear.
Yes, they're not 10 feet tall. It's an interesting conundrum. There's an echo chamber around Xi. The stronger he gets, of course, the less anybody wants to tell him anything he doesn't want to hear. So one of the real questions is he hearing what's really going on in China?
Was Khrushchev the same way? Because, Khrushchev went to work one morning and the locks were changed.
Yeah. I think these regimes are inevitably that, but I think the personality can change it a little bit. In other words, to the extent that they're collegial, which they tried to be more before Xi, and you're right, that was Deng Xiaoping's, that was his basically way of running China. They can be more honest with the leader, but he's created this cult of personality, and he wants to be another Mao Zedong.
Oh, and Wang Huning is helping him do it. I suggest you the Palladium piece. Jim Talent, Merry Christmas to you and yours. Safety in as you go about your stuff, and we'll talk, if not next week, in the new year. Merry Christmas, Jim. Don't go anywhere, America. I will be right back. Andrew Roberts with the Book of the Year. The Last King of America will join me. And your phone calls, 1-800-520-1234. It's your last chance before Christmas to tell me what I've done right or wrong and to yell at Twain. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway. Hope you enjoyed me on Special Report last night. I'm pleased to continue the conversation about Senator Joe Manchin with another one of his colleagues this morning. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama joins me. Senator, welcome. I don't think I've talked to you since your election campaign. Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, good morning. Merry Christmas to you. Yes, good to hear you. And a few things have happened in my first year in the Senate, and look forward to talking to you about them.
Well, I want to get to them, but I got to ask you 3 football questions first. Right. The first football question, if you went over to Joe Manchin and said, Joe, I can get the Volunteers into the SEC if you'll come over to the Republican side, you think that'll work?
That might have something to do with it. There's a lot of these teams that would love to be in the SEC. You know that as well as I do.
I know. I mean, they can't get into the Big Ten, so they got to go to the SEC. Secondly, Coach, Nick Saban, I've never talked to him. Has he made a deal with Beelzebub? I mean, is there a deal with the devil going on down there?
I tell you what, it's amazing what they've done. They continue to win, and I tell him all the time, the hardest thing, it's hard to get to where he's gotten. It's even doubly hard to stay where you're at. And, all things keep falling in place. It's all about players. He does a great job recruiting. He's done a good job of bringing people kids to Alabama that run his system, and it's a machine. And
what
really
a machine!
Got it going.
Now, my last question is about my friend Urban Meyer. And Coach Meyer did not make it work in Jacksonville. I do not think they gave him enough time, and I do not think NFL players are college kids. Do you expect to see him back in the college ranks?
Probably television. I don't think he'll get back into coaching. But you never know. You never say never. But Urban's a good coach. Pro football is not a lot of fit for a lot of coaches. I mean, it's a business. Pro football is about owners and players. the coaches are pawns in between, and they'll fire you to sell a season ticket. So it's just it's a tough year for Urban, and hopefully he gets back and lands on.
Yeah, I really thought that the guy who owns the Jaguars would give him 4 years, which is what it takes to put a culture in place. But not to be. He'll be fine. Let me talk to you about your first year in the Senate, which is a lot easier than Urban's first year at the Jaguars. You're on SAS, the Senate Armed Services Committee. You got the NDAA done. Tell us about the big wins in the NDAA.
Well, it was huge. First of all, President Biden wanted to basically cut our military budget, and with China and Iran and Russia breathing down our neck, that's exactly opposite what we needed to do. And I was just shocked. I mean, the guy's been in Washington D.C. forever, and he comes in and wants to cut the military. So we added $25 billion, and with us talking about all the trillions and stuff, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. It's a couple more ships. It's some things that we really needed to keep up with China, because they've spent $400 billion more than we have in the last 7, 8, 9 years, and we've cut our budget $200 billion, and they are just racing past us. I think the 2.7% raise for all of our military personnel, that doesn't sound like a lot either. But
hey, stop! I've got 2 kids in the military. That's a lot, and that's much appreciated. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we needed to do that, and because we're going to start losing more and more kids to go into big tech and some of these things that they can make a lot more money. But that's the reason every time I see one of them, I thank them for their service, because they're not doing it to get rich. They're doing it to protect our country. Here in Alabama, we got hypersonic missile testing where we put some money in that. We have to catch up with Chinese. They're so far ahead of us on hypersonic missiles, and then high energy lasers, the same thing. That's the future of war fighting. We hope we never get into another war. You know as well as I do, but all these things, they mount up to make sure that we do things, the little things right, to keep up and keep our country protected.
Senator, I got to stop right there. The Space Coast is in Alabama. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's in Florida or Texas. It's in Alabama. And the missile work is in Alabama. And my question to you is Alabama going to become Austin, Texas? And by that I mean people are going to figure out it's a wonderful place to live, pretty inexpensive. You get a lot of house, a lot of land, nice climate, and you get an ocean. What's going to happen down there?
Well, first of all, Huntsville, Alabama has become the missile defense capital of the world. That's where we make them, we design them, we do all the little things to put them all together. Even all over the state of Alabama, we make the THAAD missile, we make the Hellcat fire missile. Our military presence in Alabama is above and beyond most states in this country, and rightly so. And as you said, Texas has got a lot of people coming in the big tech industry, especially in Austin. It's kind of flipping over, but Huntsville is still a red state or a red city. It's the biggest city now in the state of Alabama. It's bigger than Birmingham. Because of missile defense, we've added the FBI, cybersecurity to Huntsville. NASA's coming back. NASA's coming back. SpaceX is there. ULA is there. We make pretty much all the rockets that's made in the United States. And of course, we're going back to the moon. And hopefully, in the next 15, 20 years, we'll be at we'll go to Mars. And
how much of the private sector space industry is going in there, Senator?
Oh, you talk about in Huntsville?
Yeah,
a majority of it. Of course, there's some in Houston, and there's a lot of it that's fielded out across the country. But everything that really happens because of Von Braun many years ago is still in Huntsville, and it's growing and expanding. We've got 5,000 contractors in Huntsville alone that basically do everything from lasers to missiles to rockets to building engines and building engines for these huge rockets that will hopefully in the future go back to the moon and back to Mars. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of.
I spend a lot of time on this show, and I want to applaud the hypersonic funding and the hypersonic focus. That's it. That's everything. I know cyber matters a great deal. I know that space and satellites matter a great deal. But with the Chinese launching glide hypersonics into space over the South Pole, we are in a missile race, and we got to win it.
Yeah. Well, as you just said, people don't realize. Here's what it is: they've got a missile now that can come from any angle at us here in the United States, and we don't know when it's coming and where it's coming from. And when you can do that and you can't protect yourself from it, and you don't have defense missiles to protect yourself, then you're in a world of hurt. Folks, we're in a world of hurt. We're behind. We spent 20 years in these wars over in the Middle East, and we spent all our money there. Now, hopefully, we redirect a lot of that money to making sure that we protect every coast that we have, north, south, east, and west. And a lot of it, again, is done through the state of Alabama, through Huntsville and the other areas. And we've got a lot of smart people here, and we'll catch up. We just got to need a little time and obviously spend some money.
Can people still afford to live in Alabama? I mean, are home prices doing what they're doing in places like Minnesota, where they went up 7% year over year in November?
Oh, they're going up, especially in places like Huntsville. The price of lumber and the price of concrete and steel and all those things. Inflation's hit us. You know, this president we got now, we don't have any adults in the room in Washington, D.C., and they've lost control of our infrastructure. They've lost control of our supply chains. I don't know what they're doing. We've stepped back and watched this as Republicans. We're fighting back at some of this stuff, Hugh, but we have no power because we're a 50-50 Senate. They've got the House, and of course you got President Biden up there making decisions that we don't know why he's making some of these decisions. But it is what it is. But it is very expensive all over.
Now, Leader McConnell was on with me yesterday. He seemed pretty optimistic that Joe Manchin may come over. What's your assessment? You're a coach. You've studied the other team. What do you think?
Well, I've spent my first year recruiting Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema. I don't know whether he'll come to our side. He's told me, my dad was a Democrat. I grew up a Democrat. But, this Democrat Party is not what we all knew of it the last 25, 30, 40 years. They've gone more progressive. The father left. Progressive means Marxist communist. And you hate to say that, but we've got those in our country now. And
we got to get them into the transfer portal. Once they drop their papers, they can't get out, right?
Yeah, get them in the transfer portal and maybe at least get them to go independent and come caucus with us. Because let me tell you, Hugh, this country's in trouble. I've told you this. When you asked me, Coach, why are you doing this? Why are you running for the Senate? Yep. I said, Hugh, I've actually had a job. I said, this country's in trouble, and we are in trouble. We're in trouble because we've got the people running this country that want to take it another direction, away from our Constitution, away from liberties and freedoms, and give up our borders. I mean, everything they're doing, if you look at it, Hugh, everything that they've done since I've been in 1 year is they're working on votes. They're working on votes at the border. They're working on votes by paying people money not to work. They're trying to get this Voting Rights Act passed where it make it easier to cheat. And so everything they're doing is to win elections to keep power. Stand
in the gap, Senator. Go get Joe Manchin. Tell him the volunteers get into the SEC if you've got anything to say about it, and get him into the transfer portal. Merry Christmas, Senator. Great to have you, and to the wonderful people of Alabama, thank you for sending us a superstar. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt.